All right, it is 11:30 Central, so we will get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to today's webinar, Integrating Leadership Soft Skills into Your CTE Program. My name is Emily Klinsky. I'm on the marketing team here at Realityworks. Presenting today, we have with us Denise DuBois, our Realityworks product manager. Denise has been with Realityworks for 10 years and is a frequent presenter, trainer, and blogger, all things related to RealCareer baby, health sciences, and soft skills. Denise has over 20 years of education, marketing, product design, and curriculum writing experience, so she's a fantastic resource for today's webinar. Before we get started, I wanted to cover a couple things. First, today's presentation is being recorded and all attendees will receive a link to that recording as well as the handouts within 24 hours of the presentation. We will have time at the end for a Q&A session, so if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat feature at the bottom or in the Q&A session. And we will answer as many of those at the end as we can. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to Denise.
Thank you, Emily, and welcome everyone to our session today on integrating leadership soft skills into your CTE program. Now, do your students understand the importance of things like vision, diplomacy, coaching, or team building? Well, whatever career path that they choose, employability skills or soft skills will help them succeed as leaders. So in this session, we want to share tips and some best practices for integrating the leadership skills into any program to teach students the soft skills that they're going to need for leadership beyond the classroom. So first of all, we are briefly going to discuss why soft skills even matter. And then we'll get into a variety of activities and ideas that you can use for weaving leadership soft skills into your courses. So first, let's define just what these skills are. Employability skills, also known as soft skills, are the skills needed to help keep and get a job. Now, soft skills are also incredibly important as they relate to leadership. So helping your students become college and career ready is a primary goal of your programs. Developing young leaders is another. So one way to ensure career readiness is to give your students the opportunity to actively practice a variety of soft skills. So you can use scenarios and activities to introduce students to many important soft skills, such as these on the screen in front of you, that are highly desired by employers. So through a variety of activities and discussions, you can relate each soft skill, which ties it into leadership development. And we'll show you how to do that today. First of all, do not underestimate the importance of soft skills in the workplace. In a recent study conducted by LinkedIn, 57% of business leaders rated soft skills more important than hard skills. Now, another statistic by a group called IQ is the fact that 89% of new hires that don't work out, it's because of that soft skills gap. Now, job success, we know, is deeply dependent on an employee's soft skills. So let's take another look at a recent study conducted by Harvard, where they came up with a statistic that said 85% of job success comes from having well-developed soft skills and people skills. And another recent study found that the more a company focuses on internal leadership development, the better it performs meeting its objectives. So let's take a deeper dive into how we can integrate leadership soft skills into everyday lessons. So here are some activities and ideas for incorporating these leadership soft skills into your everyday lessons. First of all, best practice number one is engage your students. And this first best practice for integrating leadership soft skills, of course, and is to engage your students. And that is all about, we know, CTE in general is about hands-on experiential learning. So it is no different as you introduce leadership soft skills for practice and application in your lessons. So helping students learn self-confidence is an important soft skill for any occupational area. Now, we know that in a post-COVID work environment, things like a handshake may no longer be the norm. So practicing a professional way to introduce yourself and initiate a conversation, making that solid first impression is a great way to engage your students. So one idea is to introduce the acronym SPECIAL as a way to practice professional introductions. So smile, start with that smile, be confident. Posture, stand up straight. Eye contact, look them straight in the eye. C, confidence, be positive and self-confident. You are worth getting to know. I, introduce yourself, practice what you'd say in a short elevator speech about yourself. A, ask a question. Asking questions shows that you are engaged and you're interested. And lastly, L for learn and listen. Learn and listen from the other person by using active listening techniques. So you could introduce the acronym and then pair your students up and have them practice that with each other. So starting with a strong introduction is a great, quick way to engage your students. Now we'll share a variety of other lesson activities you can use to engage students as you introduce leadership soft skills. So here's one way you can use things like scenarios to teach the skill of trust. Helping students learn how trust and confidentiality are important to leadership is really key. So here's something that you would share with students. Using confidentiality is a great strategy for building trust. It's important to keep any confidence that you have been entrusted with by someone else. You can't expect to be an effective leader if you betray the trust someone has placed upon you. One of the most common signs of someone who cannot be trusted with confidential information is the person who says, "So-and-so told me this in confidence, but I know you won't say anything." While you may feel special that this person trusts you, what about the person whose information they promise not to divulge? Has this ever happened to you, or with someone you trusted? So have your students share any examples that they might be comfortable with. Now, a few potential discussion questions could be, are you someone who can be trusted with private and confidential information? Why or why not? To gauge your trustworthiness in this area, ask yourself, how would you handle the following scenario? So you divide the class into small groups, maybe 3 or 4 students, and you would share a confidentiality scenario, such as the one that you see on the screen, with each group. Now you could use one for every group, or you could come up with several so that each group has their own scenario. And then you could also work in the groups where they have to come to consensus on just how they would recommend handling each scenario, along with the reason and why they chose their answer. So here's the scenario we're going to share today. Your friend, who's also your partner and co-owner in the restaurant, decides to go solo and open his own restaurant. It will directly compete against you. You've been through a lot together and have plenty of information that could negatively influence his reputation. Do you leak this information? So your small groups go ahead, discuss, and then after that, you bring the class back together and you would have each group choose the scenario. If you have multiple scenarios, choose one scenario to read through, and then they'd have a representative from the group explain their answer as well as why they chose to handle the scenario the way that they did. Now, when you keep things confidential, that should remain confidential, you will gain the reputation as a person who can be trusted and grow strong in character and value. Now, you could also do an activity like this in a distance learning format by posting it as a writing exercise on an LMS system or in Google Classroom. Conflicts in the workplace can be a distraction. They can destroy motivation, reduce productivity, and lead to anger and frustration overall. So as a leader, it's your job to successfully facilitate conflict resolution. Now, we know that some conflict is natural in the workplace and can many times lead to healthy discussions and innovative solutions. So there are 5 conflict approach styles to choose from according to the Thomas Kilmann model. And that is the model that we're going to use in the next activity to help students understand conflict resolution. So the first thing you would do with students is you would give an overview of the 5 conflict approach styles. And I've got the 5 styles listed on the screen in front of you, 1 through 5. I'm just going to share a little bit about each one. But if you want more information on the Thomas Kilmann model, there are many sources out there on the internet. You just have to type in Thomas Kilmann model and you'll get a lot of supporting information, and you can decide to what degree and what level of specificity you would share with your students. So number one, competing. Leaders use their position, knowledge, or persuasion to control subordinates. This style is typically used in emergencies when a decision must be made quickly, using autocratic leadership to resolve a problem. Number two, collaborating. This participatory leadership style fosters an environment of cooperation and collaboration. Employees learn to function and solve problems as a team. Number three, compromising. Both sides in the conflict give up something to gain an agreement. Leaders using this approach encourage team members to concede when necessary to maintain productivity rather than continuing to argue. Number four is avoiding. This strategy means ignoring the conflict. Effective leaders recognize that delegating conflict resolution to a third party on occasion can be effective in situations where emotions run high and mitigates the temptation to ignore the issues. And number five is accommodating. For the greater good of the team, a team member may surrender their position. When stakes are low, this can promote unity and foster a productive environment. However, this doesn't work in the long term. So in this activity, students would read through a workplace scenario, and then they're tasked with using a conflict approach style to solve it. So let's read through our scenario that we're going to share with students. You are the head chef in a local cafe. Anna and Jose both work in the kitchen. Jose was hired a few months ago, and Anna has worked there for 9 years. Jose, while a competent worker, tends to procrastinate. Anna works more steadily and keeps on top of her tasks. Anna complains to you that she feels she has to worry now about Jose's work along with her own. Anna and Jose rely on each other for certain tasks to be completed. Anna is uncomfortable with waiting until the last minute, and because of the conflict, Jose is missing more work, and you suspect it's because he wants to avoid Anna and her anger. So, how do you resolve the conflict, and which conflict approach style would you choose and why? Number two best practice is instilling professionalism in your classroom. Now, I was recently, a few months ago, in an Illinois CTE teacher's classroom, and that instructor who had come from industry was lamenting the fact that many of her students couldn't communicate clearly, didn't know the value of showing up on time, and things of that nature. Well, a great place to start developing these skills is in the classroom, especially if they are not experiencing these requirements anywhere else. So by demanding professionalism, you're setting your students up to succeed in the workplace. So that said, the key here is for consistency. So every day, make sure your students know they're expected to arrive on time, come prepared, use proper spelling and punctuation, dress for success, and things of that sort. So now we know you might not be able to do every one of these items every day. The idea is to try to mimic a work environment and get your students used to these professional habits. Now here's a lesson idea on professionalism. First of all, begin by introducing the definition of the term professionalism to the class. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines professionalism as the conduct, aims, or qualities that characterize or mark a profession or a professional person. And it defines a profession as a calling requiring specialized knowledge and often long and intensive academic preparation. Professionalism integrates a number of different attributes which together serve to identify and define a professional. So students, you would have them complete or answer the question, what are the attributes of a professional? Now, if you're in person in class, you could give them maybe 5 minutes to identify as many professional attributes as they can. You could continue then on by sharing an image with a professionalism saying, such as the one that I have on the screen in front of you. But if you Google that, You'll find many. So this is just one example. So most of the attributes or characteristics of a professional can be summarized as how you act, how you look, and how you think. So you'd ask your students to share the attributes that they've identified in the previous step. And next, you could provide some thought-provoking questions to facilitate discussion, such as, are professionalism and leadership the same thing? Are characteristics that you would consider, or are there characteristics that you would consider professional, but not characteristic of a leader? Why or why not? In a distance learning environment, you could post this as a writing assignment or in a discussion forum on an LMS system to have students chime in on some of those key questions. So there are definitely ways you can take these ideas, and if you find yourself in a remote situation this fall, just adapt them for that environment. So as a leader, there's a difference between telling people what to do and working with employees on professional development. So a core competency for an effective leader is a coaching skill, which focuses on developing employees. One way you can introduce the concept of coaching as a leader is through a TED Talk. If you Google coaching, you'll find many that can be used on YouTube. Coaching TED Talk. So the one I have an example here that I found was quite good, I thought, and it runs about 18 minutes, and the speaker for this one that the link is for Mark Smith. But like I said, there are many to choose from, and many of them aren't terribly long. Again, if you're in a remote learning environment, you could find a TED Talk on coaching as a leader that you like, copy that link, and then you could provide that in your LMS system for your students to view remotely. So next, you could ask your students to identify coaching skills that leaders should have. Students could write them down or submit them to you online, or you could ask the question as a class exercise and come up with a master list. Again, students could post the list in an online platform to be shared so students could see each other's as well. And here are 10 that we just suggest that you share if they're not on that list. So recognizing strengths. Embrace and capitalize on the strength of each team member. Practice involved detachment. Be fully engaged emotionally while remaining non-judgmental and objective. Own the results. Be accountable when things go well and when they do not, so that you can improve and grow. Show empathy. Connect with others by walking in their shoes without an agenda or judgment. Number 5, know how to partner. Pull with and for team members. Don't direct, but ensure that individuals are heard, valued, and validated. Number 6 is remain curious. This is the difference between knowing and discovering. So encourage consideration and inclusivity. 7, pick up and give subtle communication. Listen for what is said and what is not said. Develop a process you can replicate. Find a coaching methodology that works and refine it so that it's efficient and you can replicate it. Number 9, ask open-ended questions. Create openings for new action. Don't just problem solve. And number 10, create a strategic vision for transformation. Set visions for others to reach for and to achieve greater for themselves. Now, using these 10 skills, share the following scenario, or you could create one of your own. And then after reading it to your class, ask your students how they could use some of the leadership skills to coach their employee in the scenario. So here's one that I came up with, but you could also come up with a short one that ties into the CTE area you teach. So here's one I came up with. You are the manager at a local convenience store. On Monday, you observed your cashier, Michael, being rude to a customer. The customer said that they received the wrong drink. Michael said that he gave them just what they ordered and that he was right. He said he would not give them a new drink unless they paid for it. The customer walked away very angry and left the building. So have your students go back to their list of all of the attributes of coaching or strategies for coaching as a leader, and then apply them to the scenario that you share with the group. Now, SMART goal is a goal-setting technique that allows leaders the opportunity to set actionable objectives that receive results. Many managers and leaders may use this method to further break down long-standing, vague, or unclear goals. Each letter in the acronym is a principle that can be used in the process to create goals that make sense. So here's an activity where we're going to share a scenario and have students write a SMART goal for the young lady in our scenario named Maria. So here's our scenario. Maria is a recent college graduate. She has a degree in interior design. It has always been a dream of hers to start her own business using her own designs for things like office spaces. She likes the idea of having her own business so she can work when she wants and travel. She loves to travel with her family, and she uses some of the pictures from her trips in her room designs. She would really like to be able to quit her part-time job in a couple of years to run her own business full-time. So Maria's broad goal is, I want to start a business. Now you would task your students to writing a SMART goal to help Maria reach her goal. Now, again, you could also create a scenario that you could use for creating a SMART goal in a CTE area that matches what you teach. It's not difficult to do. You can see some of these scenarios are fairly short, but they can definitely tie into the areas that you teach. So here's something on tact. Now, diplomacy in leadership refers to the use of tact in such a way that negotiations, policies, conflicts, interests, and benefits are agreed upon, and both parties are happy with the outcome. It's a unique skill set that some people have naturally, while others develop through practice, trial, and error. So a leader who uses diplomacy and tact excels. So this activity will help students understand what diplomacy and tact are and how to use these skills in the workplace. So you could share the following strategies for communicating with tact. Number one, consider the other person's viewpoint and acknowledge it. Number two, consider cultural differences. 3, be discreet. 4, be gracious at all times. 5, have empathy. 6, be an active listener. And 7, be respectful. So now that you've shared strategies for communicating with tact, you could have your students put this into practice. So you would share with them statements and say, how would you restate each of the following statements to be more tactful? Now, here's a few that I came up with, but you could create a dozen or more of your own very easily, or you could even have each student contribute one statement that another student has to restate. So, for example, the first one here, I want that accident report now. Restated with tact could be, could you submit the accident report as soon as possible so that we can brief our insurance company? So you could have your students work through these and put strategies for communicating with tact into practice in a very easy way. So here's our best practice number 3, and that is to strive to integrate some sort of leadership skills into every class. Now, good effective leadership is a skill that can certainly be learned, practiced, and improved upon. And while we tend to notice, obviously, the more obvious charismatic leaders with the loud and bold personalities, the fact is that anybody, even the quiet kid in the back who hardly speaks a word, can be a leader. In fact, it is highly likely that at some point in their life, everyone will be called upon to lead in some capacity. So with this in mind, it is crucial that we provide what training we can to prepare students for leadership roles, to prepare them to be good, effective leaders that will take others in a positive direction. So our world certainly needs those good, effective leaders. And with a bit of training and encouragement, our students have the potential to meet and even surpass that need. Now, to get this point across to students, if you look on YouTube, there are at least half a dozen videos with the title, Everyone Can Be a Leader. And that might be something that you'd like to share with your students as well. So one easy way to integrate leadership skills into every class is through the use of icebreaker activities. These could be a 30-second introduction or a focused 5-minute activity, but leadership skills can definitely be addressed in every classroom. So here's a few more ideas for icebreakers. And some of these students are probably not even aware that they're learning these types of skills. So collaborative work helps build communication skills. You could start with a quick think, pair, share activity where students pair up for a quick discussion. Open-ended questions help build problem-solving skills. So you could write a big idea question on the board or pose it to them, if you're in a remote situation, on an LMS system, and have students journal their answers. Reflection activities help build critical thinking skills. So you could use a KWL chart at the beginning and again at the end of the class to help your students reflect on what they know and what they've learned. Oral speaking assignments help build self-confidence. You could do introductions with a twist. You could ask everyone to introduce themselves and then state something unusual about themselves that no one knows. Help students develop time management skills. To do this, you could give each group or divide students into small groups and give each group a bowl or some type of jar that has some small items, maybe marbles in it, and then ask them to put a few larger objects, it could be like tennis balls or something similar in it. And in this case, the smaller objects, which could be those marbles, are going to spill out, and the students will be doing their best to pile them back in again. But then what you would do is show them the trick of putting in the larger objects first and the smaller objects around it. Now, this just illustrates the point of prioritizing the big stuff and fitting the smaller things in around it. And we know that when you get interruptions during the day, those could be referred to as those small things like the marbles. So now we're going to talk about observation. Observation is a powerful tool for learning for all of us, but as a leader, it is perhaps even more important. So as a leader, we need to be aware of how individual team members are doing and watch for things like engagement, team dynamics, behavior, communication, and so forth. Leaders need to be looking, noticing, asking, and being aware of to spot trends, learn more, and lead more effectively. So this activity is going to help your students harness the power of observation as a leadership skill and put it into practice. So for this activity, you're going to find a photograph with a lot of detail in it. Now, you might wish to choose one that relates to the CTE area that you teach. And you're going to explain to your students that they're going to view the photo, or you could have several lined up if you wanted, but view each for 30 seconds. Now, after the 30 seconds are up, your students are going to be asked a series of questions. Now, you want to make sure that you advance the slide presentation or stop showing that photo after 30 seconds. And that way, students are going to have to recall using their powers of observation. So we're going to do that here today. And I'm going to leave this image on the screen here for you for 30 seconds. And we're going to start now. So go ahead and look at that. When after 30 seconds, I'm going to advance it and then ask you a series of questions. Okay, our 30 seconds are up. So after your students have finished viewing it, then you could pose some detailed questions. And if you'd like to, for fun, go ahead and jot down the answers to these 6 questions just on a sheet of paper you might have available to you, and I'll share the answers with you. So what fruit was being cut? How many apples were uncut on the table? How many students did you see? Versus how many instructors were in the room? What were the students making? Were measuring spoons present? How many students were wearing aprons? So you can see you could come up with, questions surrounding a photo like that. So in case you're wondering about the answer, apples were being used. There were 3 uncut apples in the photo. 6 students, 1 instructor. They were making an apple dessert of some sort. Measuring spoons were not present, and 4 of the students were wearing aprons. So now we'll move on to an activity involving honesty and integrity. Having honesty and integrity in the workplace is one of the most important qualities in great leadership. So in this activity, your students are going to learn what this means and how to apply these skills to their work and their personal lives. So you can begin, if students are not familiar with these words, by defining each. So honesty is defined by a person's relationship to truth and deception, or lack of it, while integrity is defined by a person's relationship to principles, such as codes of conduct and or morality. Integrity stands as a more broadly demanding concept morally in comparison to honesty. So you can see how both are an essential part of being an effective leader. So for this activity, you would find quotes or sayings online that focus on honesty and integrity. You would share these with your students, and then as a writing exercise, have them journal and ask for students to tell you what they think the quote really means and why. So here are 2 examples that you could use, but there are many, many more out there. So students would find one, read it, and then in writing, tell you what they think it really means. Here's an activity surrounding visualization. The visionary leader can clearly articulate their view of the future, allowing followers to understand how they play an important role in the future state. So by doing this, followers become committed to sharing or making that vision come true. So this activity will help students understand what it means to visualize something and how they can apply this to their own life. So in this exercise, it includes thinking about things like goals, the future, and dreams your students will have. They are going to be led through the visualization with a series of questions. So you'd ask your students to close their eyes, and then you're going to lead them through a visual imagery exercise. You could use the following prompts that I'm going to share to guide your students to not only think about, but also to visualize their goals, their futures, and their dreams. So you want to be careful when you do this to pause between the prompts in order to give the students time to create those visual pictures and really imagine the possibilities. Now, to do this in a distance learning environment, what you might want to do is create an audio or a video file that you could post with those prompts, and your students would access that and they could still do the activity. So a lot of these ideas are very adaptable for whichever learning environment we find ourselves in, especially this fall. So here we go. Think of a career or an educational goal or dream that you wish to accomplish. Now, this might be something you are currently doing or something for your future. It could be something you've considered but haven't truly thought you could do. Now imagine what the day would look like when you achieved your goal. Picture yourself in that environment. What do you look like? What are you saying and doing? Who else is there with you? Now see the environment. What does it look like, smell like, sound like? How do you feel? Consider what it took for you to get to this point. How long did it take you? What sacrifices did you have to make? What were the little victories you were able to celebrate along the way? What were the victories that you knew were bringing you much closer to your goal? What did that path look like? Was it smooth and even, or bumpy and challenging? What difficulties did you encounter? How did you walk through these? Think about the time it took to get through each one. Now, picture yourself today and think about the steps you're going to take to get to that goal. So students would open their eyes and then take 5 to 10 minutes to journal what they envisioned. And again, you could do this if you're in an in-person classroom situation or through a remote learning environment. So number 4, CTSOs. Now we know that many CTSO organizations have leadership competitive events. We know FCCLA has leadership star events. FFA has many career and leadership development competitive events and opportunities. HOSA has at least 10 leadership events that cover a variety of soft skills. So we think that some of the ideas that we shared today could help your students prepare for these leadership events. So, these ideas could give your students practice and application of those important leadership soft skills. So you might want to take a few and try them out and see how they go. Now, we've given you a lot of ideas and activities for integrating leadership soft skills into your CTE classes. Now, if you're looking to save time, we have a leadership soft skill program that has 3 components to it. First of all, the teacher guide has 18 ready-to-use lessons, includes a set of 20 workbooks, and then scenario cards, each card featuring 1 scenario for each of the 18 soft skills included. Now, a program like this could be used in any CTE course to augment or supplement what you're already doing. So if you're looking to save time and you like the idea of integrating leadership soft skills into your courses, here is one resource that we do have available. Now, similarly, we also have a program that is called the Employability Skills Program that, again, could be used in any CTE course. It could be a complete unit on soft skills or as a supplement to an existing career prep program. This one has 19 soft skills, all different than the leadership soft skills one. And again, they have the scenario cards and those student workbooks. So we just like to let you know that these types of resources do exist that we can share because we know not everybody has the time to create their own scenarios and prepare all of those activities and so forth. So just want to make you aware of those. And we do have some additional free resources that we always like to point you to. First of all, Realityworks has a blog, and we update this on a regular basis. We have guest writers for us. We share information on new product launches, might be classroom ideas and things like that, but a great place to go for ideas and information. We are on social media. We have Facebook, Twitter, other things. We also do a series of webinars monthly on a variety of topics, and many of those are soft skill related. Any webinar, including the one today that we do, we record and we archive them, and they are available to you on demand. So if you are looking for some additional soft skill ideas in general, a great place to go would be our webinar link that you see on the screen in front of you. And there are dozens of webinars out there that you can watch. Usually they're around 30 minutes, so not real long, but they may also be helpful for providing ideas for you to use in your classes. Now, we have an exciting announcement that we've been saving for the end, but all relevant to soft skills. We have 2 brand new online courses that are going to be available back to school. We hope we're planning for beginning of September. And they are on our employability skills and our leadership soft skills programs. Both the print programs in the slides that I just showed you are now being turned into online courses that are all done and available to students via online format. We did this for a few reasons, but one big one was the fact that with the COVID-19 and all of the change in the learning environments, we have received more and more requests for resources that instructors could have available if their students are in a remote learning environment. And these 2 programs are going to be perfect for that. Some of the key features are that each lesson, each program includes the same lessons and soft skill topics as the print program. Each lesson is self-paced. There are all sorts of ways that students are engaged with that content. Learning objects, there's videos, there's self-tests, there's just a lot of different ways that content will come to life. It's not just reading. So we think that students will find it engaging, and it will also help them learn about key employability and leadership skills that they can learn in a really engaging online environment. The courses include progress monitoring, so students can see how far in each lesson they've gone and when it's completed. There are also many, many exercises that can be submitted to you instructors for accountability and grading. So we are very, very excited to make these available to everybody in that back to school time frame. So if you're interested in learning more about these and being kind of the first to know when these come out, if you go to this page, realityworks.com/online soft-skills-programs / there is a form that you will be able to fill out, and then we are going to send you information just as soon as the programs are ready. They're actively in development right now, and we're on track for delivery this fall. So we are very, very happy to share that information with you. So Emily, at this point, I've talked a long time. We're going to turn it over to you for any of the Q&A session.
Yeah, Denise, we do have some questions on what they'll be receiving from the webinar.
Okay, well, as Emily said, you will receive a link to the recording of the webinar. And for participating in today's webinar, you are also going to be receiving one complete free lesson from our Leadership Soft Skills program. It's on honesty and integrity. We are providing you with the instructor complete lesson facilitator instructions, all of the handouts for students, the slide presentation. So you're going to get all of that, as well as the scenario card on that. So you'll have an entire lesson you'll be able to kind of test out in your class all about honesty and integrity. You will also get a certificate of completion for your participation today, so that if you have professional development needs, that will provide you with the source documentation you will need that will show that you participated in today's webinar.
Awesome. And then I'm getting some questions on sharing that link that you just talked about for our new online program. And I just shared that link in the chat if anybody does need that.
And I've just pulled that back up from the slide presentation too.
Perfect. And then Denise, we have a question on the cost of the employability skills program and the leadership skill or soft skills program.
The print programs, all of the pricing you can find on our website, realityworks.com. If you go to the website store, you will find both of those programs, the pricing for the complete program, and then we also have extra workbook packs and those scenario cards available if you want more of those. And in addition, we have some pathway-specific scenario cards that are available if you are teaching in specific CTE areas and would like to tie some of these soft skills more directly to the topic areas you teach. So that would be the best source to go to for our most up-to-date pricing on the print program. For the online programs, we will be sharing the pricing information with you when that course is ready. So if you fill out that form that you see on that on the URL on the screen in front of you, you will receive the pricing and all the information about the online programs as soon as they're ready to go.
Perfect. And then if you did join in late, we already have your email address, so don't worry about that. We will get everything sent out that Denise was referencing. And then Denise, we do have a question. Can you be a member of HOSA without having a chapter as a teacher?
That's a really good question. And you know what? I think just reach out to HOSA and ask them directly. I don't want to speak on their behalf, and I'm not quite sure, but it's a really good question. I'm sure that they would be able to answer that if you just go to their website and click on their contact info.
Okay. I think that was, we had one question regarding professionalism. We had one teacher that got a lot of kickback when she asked the students to dress professionally, and I wasn't sure if I was on a solid ground when it might come to these grievances. Any ideas on how to handle those types of things?
I do know that in one of our employability skills program, that in the professionalism lesson, we do address how to dress professionally, but one key part of that is know the job and know the work environment. Office professional is going to be different than if you're wearing a uniform to do other types of jobs, scrubs if you're a healthcare provider. So if you're going to ask your students to dress professionally, really have them define what the profession is that they're dressing for. Maybe you could have them choose a specific occupation and then dress accordingly if they can find the right outfit. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's office casual, but task them with coming up with either dressing professionally themselves for a specific occupation, or finding a photo or something of an example of what appropriate attire would be for a specific occupation.
Perfect. And I'm not seeing any other questions coming in right now, so I
think we're good.
I think we are good. If there aren't any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat.
And I'd just like to appreciate everyone's participation today. I know it's the heart of summer, but I can tell many of our educators are preparing throughout the summer for the fall because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding what our learning environment is going to be. So I think that you'll find that a lot of the ideas that were presented today could work in multiple environments. And you know, we've shared a lot. Maybe just choose one or two that resonated with you and see what happens. But yeah, we know that there's a lot of uncertainty. So we appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with us today.